In the last part of the program, we saw how cable can be buried directly in the ground. But URD cable can also be installed in underground conduit. This is done for a number of reasons. One reason is protection. Conduit can protect a cable from water or corrosive damage. It can also be used to make cable replacement in URD systems easier. And in both conduit and direct buried URD systems, spare conduit is also often used. Many times, this spare conduit is put in along with other runs of conduit or with a direct buried cable when the original excavation and installation are done. Having the spare conduit already in the trench means additional installation may be done without extensive re-excavating. Another example of conduit use in a URD system is when spare conduit is installed prior to paving roadways or driveways, so that when the URD system is installed, pavement doesn't have to be dug up. In this part of the program, we'll see how, during the installation of a URD system, URD cable can be installed under a roadway in existing conduit. We'll see some of the tools and equipment, as well as one method of preparing conduit for cable installation. Now keep in mind that the equipment and procedures for installing cable in underground conduit can vary from company to company. Let's look at a simplified illustration of the work site to see how the job will be done. This is a section of roadway under which a crew has already buried a length of spare conduit. The conduit has been capped to prevent dirt and other foreign matter from getting into it. To install the URD cable, trenches are dug on each side of the road up to the conduit. Then a light synthetic line, called a jet line, is blown through the conduit so that a brush can be sent through to clean and prepare the conduit. Then a line is used to pull the cable from one side of the roadway to the other. So the basic job of installing URD cable in underground conduit can be broken down into 4 steps. These are excavation, line blowing, conduit cleaning, and cable pulling. Let's take a look at each step. For this job, the trench has been dug up to the point where the conduit crosses the road, and then continued on the other side. The ends of the conduit are exposed by crewmen digging by hand. This avoids damaging the conduit. The cable is pulled into the trench up to the point where it will cross under the road. Enough extra cable has been pulled to pass through the conduit and on to the next termination point. Any extra cable is coiled on the ground. With the trench and the cable ready, the next step is blowing the jet line through the conduit. The jet line will be used to clean the inside of the conduit and to pull the cable through. The jet line is usually blown through the conduit using compressed air. To do this, a device called a jet line gun is used. Although there are many different kinds of jet line guns, some manufactured and some homemade, most operate in the same basic way. Let's take a closer look at the gun our crew will be using. This jet line gun consists of a wooden cylinder with several fittings. The cylinder is tapered so that it can fit into and seal a number of different conduit diameters. One fitting on the cylinder is a pipe that can be connected to an air compressor or other source of compressed air. A valve on the pipe is used to control the flow of air through the cylinder and into the conduit. The cylinder also has a channel drilled through it. The diameter of the channel is large enough to allow the jet line to move through it freely. Connected to the end of the jet line is a hollow cone, often called a shuttlecock. To blow the jet line through the conduit, the covers on the ends of the conduit are first removed. Then the cone is inserted into one end of the conduit, and the cylinder is used to seal the end of the conduit. The crewman then opens the airflow valve. The compressed air pushes the cone and jet line through the conduit run. If there are no major obstructions in the conduit, the line emerges on the other side of the road. After the line is blown through, the conduit can be cleaned to remove any solid particles and debris. To do this, a wire brush that has a diameter slightly larger than the diameter of the conduit is attached to the jet line. The other end of the brush is attached to a half-inch rope that will be used later to pull the cable. The brush is then moved back and forth through the conduit. When the brush is removed, the rope is left threaded through the conduit. The last step is pulling the cable through the conduit. In this case, the distance is only about 50 feet and the cable is fairly light, so the cable pull can be done by hand. To pull the cable, the end of the rope is attached to the cable with a kellum grip or basket. The basket's wires contract and hold fast to the cable sheath when a pull is applied. Once the cable is connected to the pulling rope, the cable pull begins. One crewman pulls on the rope on one end of the conduit. A second crewman feeds the cable into the conduit on the other side of the road, working to prevent any kinks from forming in the cable. Both crewmen visually inspect the cable during the pull to make sure that it isn't damaged. When the cable has been pulled through the conduit and is placed into the trenches are backfilled and compacted according to company procedures. So you can see that cable installation in underground conduit is basically done in 4 steps: excavation, line blowing, conduit cleaning, and cable pulling. Now, for the installation we just saw, the job was relatively simple. The cable pulling distance was short, and the cable was not heavy.